Today I'd like to show you how to make this no-line watercolor with this Easter set, which is the Easter message from Stampin' Up. This is in the New Occasions catalog, and so let's get started. I'm using 140-pound cold press watercolor cut at 4 and 5 1/4 inches, a piece of smoky slate cut at the same size, and Neenah Solar White cut at 5 1/2 by 8 1/2, which is your standard A2 cardstock size. I'm going to stamp the cross and the cloth over it in smoky slate ink onto the watercolor. Now, smoky slate is so light that we're going to be able to blend that in, and the cross will be a grayish color, and we're going to stamp that right in the center as close as you can to the watercolor paper. Now I'm going to take an acrylic block, and I'm using 3 colors here. I'm going to use Elegant Eggplant, Smoky Slate, and Soft Suede. I'm going to take the smoky slate first, and I'm going to take the brush end of the smoky slate, and I'm going to just color the smoky slate onto this acrylic block so I can pick it up with my water brushes. Now I have 2 water brushes here. One is large and one is small tip. I'm going to use the one that's the smallest tip because I want to be able to get into the little corners of the cross. And I'm just going to start and put the darkest color down right in the shadow pieces. Now, one way to do this is the smoky slate ink will actually blend on this cross. So I'm going to blend it in all over and put more smoky slate down into where the shadows should appear. Now I'm going to take my next color for the cloth that's hanging over it, the shroud, whatever you want to call it, and I'm going to put down some Elegant Eggplant. Now the important part about doing this is that I'm going to do each section separately. So clean off the brush just on paper, and I'm going to take just plain water and I'm going to add it into one section. As you can see, I'm just going to do this one little dark section right here. And then I'm going to pick up a little ink and put it where the darkest part is and just kind of dab it in to where I want it, and then blend it with the water brush. Now it's important that when you do this cloth, as you can see, where all the sections of it are, they're outlined with that gray ink. That'll blend right into the Elegant Eggplant color. And so the important thing is that you do each piece of it separately. So you'll watch while I do this, is I'm going to do one section and then I'll move over to another section until that section dries, because what will happen is if you do all these sections right next to each other, they will blend in together, and that's not what you want. What you want is you want your darkest color, the darkest of the purple, right in the cracks where the shadows would be. And what I do sometimes is I color right over top, I paint right over top of the gray lines with the purple. So we're going to speed this up a little bit so you can watch this whole thing go, just so you don't have to watch me color in the whole thing. As you can see, I'm moving around different spots, waiting for one piece to dry until I actually finish. When I finish this piece, I'm going to take the next color, which is Soft Suede, and I'm going to paint the cross right about the cross pieces, the strings that go across. Now I'm going to take a Tim Holtz stitched rectangle, and I'm going to cut this out. I want to make sure that there's room for my verse down in the bottom left-hand corner. So I'm going to kind of center it on there, but I want to also make sure there's room down there. And I'm going to run this through the Big Shot. And when it comes out, you'll see the stitched edge on there. I'm going to use the smaller by Hampton Art. As you can see, the Misty and the Hampton Art Stamp Perfect are 2 different sizes. I use the Misty for the inside of the cards, And I use this one for when I have smaller pieces because it's not 8.5 inches wide, so your whole inside of your card won't fit. So I'm really going to just stamp the verse in here. So I'm going to position my verse. The stamp is clean, so I'm just going to lay it where I want it so that it makes sure that it's straight and it's inside the edges of the stitching that's on that die that I just cut out. Pick up the stamp, and I'm going to stamp this with VersaFine. I'm going to move the magnet over so the watercolor paper kind of curls. So we're going to use VersaFine here because it leaves a great image on this watercolor paper. Now the outside verse is done. And now I'm going to take the MISTI, and I have the whole inside of the card, and I want to do my inside. You see it doesn't fit all the way inside, so I don't do my inside verses on that. I use the MISTI for this because it is a whole 8.5. And I also have this laminated sheet in there that marks a halfway part across my card. So to position my stamps, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Elegant Eggplant, and I have that laminated sheet in there. I positioned the Easter lily stamp, and I kind of want that on the inside of the card. I'm not going to stamp it inside on Elegant Eggplant. Then I'm going to turn this 180 degrees, and then I'm going to position the Happy Easter stamp right where I want it on that laminated sheet. This just gives me, you can use paper for this, but I find the laminated sheet, I'm not using pieces of paper over again. So I put a piece of scrap paper in so that I don't get the other side dirty. And I look at my verse, and it's pretty well lined up. So I'm happy with that. And now I'm going to clean the stamps off, and then I'm going to stamp the Easter lily inside the card in Smoky Slate because I want that to be a soft image. So now that I know where everything is lined up, I'm going to put the scrap paper back over here because I had Elegant Eggplant on that verse, the Happy Easter, and I don't really want it. So we're going to stamp the Easter lily again in Smoky Slate on the inside of the card. Make sure the paper is over top of that purple ink so you don't get the other side inked. And of course I missed a little piece, so we're going to do it again, which is a great part about these stamping positioners. Now I'm going to move the cardstock, and I'm going to turn it 180 degrees around, and I'm going to stamp the verse also. I'm going to move the piece of scrap paper over to the other side so I don't stamp lilies again on the other side upside down. I'm going to use Elegant Eggplant. And we're going to stamp the verse right over top of that. Make sure it's nice and dark. So the inside of the card is stamped. And now I'm going to use hardwood background, and I'm going to use Smoky Slate ink with a piece of Smoky Slate paper, which I already told you about. And I'm going to take Elegant Eggplant, and I'm going to sponge around the very edges just to get a little bit of that purple out there. I'm going to take a piece of white craft foam. I'm going to put some of the double stick tape on the back of that, and I'm going to put it on the back of my piece of watercolor so that it holds it up flat all the way across the front. Then I'm going to center this onto the piece of Smoky Slate that I already stamped and sponged. And double stick tape on the back of that. And I'm going to fold the cardstock in half. Now it's important that you use a good bone folder if you want to. I had a little piece across the top that was a little rough from my dull cutting blade, and if you run your bone folder right over top of that, it smooths it right down nicely. If you use the Stampin' Up! Bone folder, it's a really nice quality one. It doesn't ruin the bone folder. I've had plastic ones that got ruined, so I like that one. And center this right on top of the front of the card, and there you go. There's your card. Thanks for watching.